I'll take a deeper look now into this situation. Let's cross over to Dr. Hassan Kanenje, Director, Horn International Institute for Strategic Studies. He's joining us via Zoom from Nairobi. Dr. Kanenje, thank you for joining us on the program. What's your take on the fighting close to Sudan's border with Chad and the threat of regional spillover?
I think the escalation that has seen the closure of the border by Chad speaks to a number of things, and it has a number of implications. One, it risks drawing Chad into the conflict theater of Sudan, especially in trying to counter the attacks coming from RSA. The second thing is the humanitarian situation is at risk of actually getting worse. Remember, Chad is a country that has also taken in a lot of refugees, and they share communities across the border, especially the Masalit and the Zagawa communities. And to the extent that this is happening, it means not only is it going to take away the livelihood, it's also going to take away a potential place for safe refuge. And so the implications are going to be enormous.
And how could this impact possibly Chad, Egypt, and South Sudan?
From a security and economic perspective, of course, Chad is going to be affected because that means it puts an end to the trade that was going on. But it also can lead to some kind of local insurgency within Chad, in part, as mentioned, that they share communities across the border. Now, for Egypt today, as we speak, hosts about 35% of Sudanese refugees. And this, what it might mean is it may actually increase that risk of increased refugees in Egypt, but also the risk of infiltration by the Islamist groups going into Egypt, something that Egypt has been afraid of. And so, by and large, the security and stability of the entire region is actually going to be affected, especially the critical countries of Chad and Egypt, in relation to not just the economics, but the security as well as the humanitarian aspects.
Now, 3 years on, though, many will be questioning, how have the objectives been transformed, both from the Sudan Armed Forces and the RSF, and what are the prospects for peace now?
At the beginning, I think there was a hope by Sudan Armed Forces of kind of reintegrating or incorporating RSF back into the mainstream military and state institutions. Increasingly, I think that objective has been abandoned. And right now, the Sudanese Armed Forces seems to be fighting for state survival as well as legitimacy. On the other hand, the RSF, I think they had ideas of taking over the state institutions, and they now seem to be focused on more consolidating regional areas where they can be able to perhaps bargain for power. Now, what are the prospects for peace? Under the current circumstances, both groups seem to be getting a lot of support, especially externally, in both financial as well as military, in ways that reduces the likelihood of making concessions. And so the incentive to make peace right now is not as high as the incentive to prosecute the war, in the hope that perhaps there's going to be a military solution by either party, which of course is not exactly feasible. And so the prospect for peace is a little bit remote, but it's not completely out of reach yet.